The TV shows that you all watch, you know, with all the people that you love and you sort of go, oh, there's that guy from that show. You may not know their names. Those are working class actors.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic.
I mean, I think it's unrealistic for a CEO to make $27, $30, $40 million and then refuse to perhaps take a 2% cut in his pay that could fund these things that we are proposing back. He would not have his $27, $30, $40 million compensation if it weren't for the content that the artists create.
We have a big problem, and we said to our employers, we have a contract that doesn't reflect the way that we work today. Streamers were not a thing 30 years ago. 30 years ago, we worked on 22 episodes. We had a 10-month season of work. Now we're doing 6 episodes, and it's on streaming where we're not getting proper residuals. Residuals are payment for when something's run over and over again, and those are what help qualify people for their health care.
You see me on 2 or 3 different shows and you're like, wow, Michelle's really working, she's doing good. I still haven't qualified for my life insurance.
And how many members are not qualifying for their health insurance?
87% of our union.
Right now, the way that the artificial intelligence proposal stands and the response from the AMPCP, they could essentially take a background performer, scan them, create a digital replica, pay them for that one session, and own their entire likeness, their face, their voice, their performance in all of eternity.
Somebody can take a voice sample and be taken without my consent, without my explicit permission.
We are ready to go back to the table. The ball's in their court.
Thank you all very much for joining us tonight for what is going to be a very interesting and informative show featuring Fran Drescher, the president of the Screen Actors Guild. Fran and I are going to be chatting about why her union, as well as the Writers Guild, are on strike and what that means not only to those union members, but to you, entertainment viewers. But before we get to Fran, I wanted to take a minute to put what is going on with the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Union into a broader context. Because the truth of the matter is that what's happening in Hollywood right now is in many ways happening all across this country. It just so happened that yesterday I was at the White House with the president to meet with a number of young union organizers. And what was really interesting is that these young activists came from very different backgrounds and occupations. Some of them were baristas at Starbucks. One of them was a chemist at Yale University. One of them was a minor league baseball player from Michigan. One of them was a developer in the video game industry. And one of them was in a manufacturing plant in Georgia that recently became unionized. And what all of these young people were saying and doing and reflecting is that in unprecedented way right now, we are seeing working people, blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, whatever backgrounds, in an unprecedented way, beginning to stand up and fight back and get involved in union organizing. They are fighting for better wages. They're fighting for better benefits. They're fighting for better working conditions. And importantly, and that word came up yesterday time and time again, dignity on the job. And not only are we seeing an increase in organizing efforts around the country, we're also seeing a growing militancy on the part of traditional unions who, when they sit down and negotiate, are now demanding decent contracts that represent the needs of their membership. To my mind, there are a few basic reasons as to why we're seeing a major uptick in union organizing and a revitalization of the trade union movement. And that has to do with the fact that over the last 50 years, real weekly wages for Americans have actually gone down after adjusting for inflation. So people are looking all around them, seeing all this technology, everything else, and their wages have actually, in many cases, gone down. Today, 60% of Americans are now living paycheck to paycheck. Life expectancy for low-income Americans is on the decline, and we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. Bottom line, people are hurting. Second reason is that at a time when working Americans are struggling to put food on the table and pay their medical bills and their rent, we are seeing more income and wealth inequality than we have ever seen in the history of this country, and more concentration of ownership. That means fewer and fewer larger corporations control more and more of our economy, and many of these corporations are now enjoying record-breaking profits. And the last point, certainly relevant to tonight's discussion with Fran, is that we're seeing major changes in technology in almost every sector of our economy. If you're working in a factory right now, you're worried that robotics is going to replace your job. If you're working in a grocery store at a checkout counter, you're worried that scanners are going to replace your job. And if you are a lawyer or a doctor, if you're a white-collar worker, you're worried about what artificial intelligence is going to be doing to your job. And the bottom line is that 30, 40 years from now, the job that you have ain't going to be there. And the whole question is, who benefits from that transition? Are workers going to get a fair share, or just the big money interests going to become even richer? So with that, having said that, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest tonight, Fran Drescher. I think all of you know that Fran is the president of the SAG-AFTRA union. She was elected president in 2021. She rose to international stardom, as we all recall, for her portrayal of the nanny, which she also co-created and was an executive producer of. That multi-award winning and nominated comedian founded the nonprofit Cancer Schmancer organization to educate and empower people after she survived cancer. And right now she is in the middle of the fight against corporate greed in Hollywood, and she is doing a wonderful job leading her union. Fran, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Senator. I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited to speak to your audience.
So let's start at the beginning. Why are you guys on strike? I thought everybody in the union was a multi-millionaire. You didn't have any problems, and everything is going great. So why are you on strike?
Well, first of all, I just want to preface that we happen to be in the forefront because we get to talk to people. We get the interest of the press. This is not a political issue. It is not a partisan issue. It's a workers against big business and oppression issue. And I think that transcends all politics. So I just want to put that on the record. As far as our union goes, 99% of them, don't make a lot of money. A great deal of them, maybe 3/4 of them, can't even make the $26,000 baseline to receive health coverage. It's a misnomer that everybody in Hollywood makes money. Actually, most actors are journeyman actors. They're working actors. They want to work. But it's really just to pay the rent and put food on the table and do what they have a calling to do. And they are the ones that fill the screens, that breathe life and into all the things that entertain everyone around the world. So
Fran, I'm glad you raised that point, because I really do think it's a misnomer. I mean, obviously there are actors and actresses who make a whole lot of money, the big name stars. But what you're saying is that the vast majority of the people who are in the acting industry do not make a whole lot of money.
That's correct. The majority of them don't. And the few that do are the engines that make the whole thing run. They're the reason why everybody else gets hired. They're the reason why people go to the theaters and turn on the TV. So I have no beef with them. And, I always grew up, don't count other people's chickens. Just do, get what you think is your fair share. And that's the way I've always lived. So I've managed to, in business, get along with a lot of different people because I don't look to see what they're making or they have. I just want my people to feel respected and honored and not be squeezed out of a livelihood because of this maniacal greed to keep on bolstering the shareholders at the expense of the foundational contributors of the entire industry business model.
All right, let me jump in right now. I think people want to know. I mean, how is the industry doing? I imagine they're all in desperate poverty. They're paying their CEOs probably $30,000 a year. They're really struggling. Is that the case? Tell me if I'm missing something.
You'd have to add a few zeros to that. Some of them make $78,000 a day. They get massive multi-million-dollar 8-figure bonuses. And it's completely connected to their success with the stock market. And so the place that they go to squeeze the money, is with the performer and, all the people. It's so sick, Bernie, because it behooves them to make the performer happy and feel honored and respected. And nobody expects to, it's capitalism. It's fine. Everybody gets their fair share. But don't come in with the attitude that, we don't count, we don't matter. Their whole job is to try and rob us of our due. And at the end of the day, they changed the business model. They foisted something new on all of us, and it has impacted all the above the liners to its detriment. And so don't change the business model and expect that we're not going to have to change the contract too. But this is happening everywhere. That speech that I gave, Bernie, just ignited a workers' movement because it spoke so authentically to everybody's issues. And that is that, big business greed is it's taking advantage of the worker in a way that we haven't really seen this bad, where it's at the breaking point. You're seeing companies, union busting. That's against the law. Hello. And other major companies going on strike, and we're on strike. Now there's 2 unions on strike. The last thing I said to the opposition in the negotiating room was, well, now you haven't been able to make deals with 2 unions. Congratulations. We're out of here.
Good. Well, I think your point is absolutely right. I mean, literally, as we speak, the Teamsters Union, one of the great large unions in this country, negotiating with UPS. We will see if they reach a settlement or not. The United Automobile Workers are negotiating with the big 3 auto manufacturers. And I think what you're saying, Fran, is that working people from all over the country, whatever work they do, whether minor league baseball players or actors or actresses, sick and tired of being ripped off. And a word that's coming up a whole lot, not just wages, not just money, it's dignity. Dignity. People are tired of being stepped on, not having their voices heard. And I think you're experiencing some of that in your profession as well, are you not?
If we come out on top and this becomes a successful negotiation for the underdog, which is us, I think the bigger success would be if the entire culture changes. Stop trying to screw the workers. What is wrong with you people? When greed and, is and profit is at the expense of all things of true value, we have a problem, because you can't, in the name of making money, destroy the planet, compromise humanity and their ability to work. And people need to work, they want to work, they need to have purpose in their life. Collapse of species, it's like, are you kidding me? What is going on here?
You're touching on a million issues that we're working on every day.
Yeah.
And right now we're seeing...
Well, that's why I'm talking to you, Bernie.
We're looking, it was, what it was in Phoenix today? I don't know what it is in LA. 127 degrees, I'm told. Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh my God. No, well,
and that heat wave is all over the world. It's in China. It's all over the world. My own state of Vermont just had a terrible flood situation. Hundreds of people are going to lose their homes.
And fires.
Fires. That's right. We're breathing the air from
Canada.
From Canadian fires in Quebec. And meanwhile, the fossil fuel industry is fighting to continue to produce more and more fossil fuels. I'm the chairman of a committee that deals with healthcare. You got 87 million people uninsured or underinsured. And you know what? The insurance companies want it all. The drug companies want it all. So your point is well taken. What we're seeing now, believe me, is not just Hollywood. It is across the sector. They want it all. And I'm just very proud that you guys are standing up and saying no. Now, let me ask you this question.
Okay.
I think there's some confusion or lack of knowledge. What are the key issues? Your industry obviously is undergoing a major change with streaming, etc. Tell us what those issues are about.
Well, okay, streaming, AI, and digital has changed the industry exponentially. So in a nutshell, I mean, we're working off of a contract that was forged in the 1960s. It's, idiotic, really. AI has to have barricades around it. It has to have consent and compensation every step of the way, because they're proposing that an employee can go in, get scanned, get 1 day's pay, and they own that likeness in perpetuity. What happens to that person? They're out of work. So that can't happen. That's a deal breaker. We have the minimums in our industry, which would be considered in the outside world like whatever the minimum wage is. They want to give a 5% bump. In real money, that would end up equating as less than what we were making in 2020, because we're one of the few unions that doesn't get a cost of living increase. So as inflation impacts our daily lives, nothing changes with us. And they want us to agree to 5%. That's going to impact us with less money than 2020 all the way through 2026. Really? I don't think so. That's crazy. And we're not going to stand for it. We need at least 11%, because 11% will, at the very least, not make anybody rich, but just catch us up with inflation. And then there's residuals and caps. But with residuals, it's based off of a model that is...
Fran, jump in. Not everybody knows what a residual is. So explain to people what a residual is and what you guys are fighting for.
Okay, well, in 1960 or 1963, when Ronald Reagan was president, and the job that I hold now, that was when the writers and the and SAG at the time, now we're SAG-AFTRA, we merged, but back then we were SAG. They went on strike together. It was at kind of the beginning of new TV. what we would consider old TV now. But back then, it became clear that something important was happening in entertainment. And the two unions went on strike. Out of that strike, they got pension, they got health, and they got residuals, which is a kind of revenue sharing. So what was determined was that we are a very integral part of the success of the industry. We're the ones that they turn into. We're the ones that move them. We're the ones that sell the product. We're it. Okay. So we need to have a little participation in that action, not just get paid for the weeks that we're working, but get a piece of the long tail of revenue that the studios would earn. Because, and we could take The Nanny as an example, even though that was in the 90s. The Nanny started out on network television. It was on for years and years on CBS. Then it went into syndication. It was on cable. It went all over the world. Now it's still on cable, and now it's on streaming too. All of these years, this long tail of revenue based off of the old model has been paying people from the smallest part to the principal players. And that's what the contract was based off of. And everybody above the line got a little piece of the action, and everyone was happy. Then this thing called streaming comes along, and you're in a box, you're in a vacuum. They make it, they put it up on the streaming platforms, and there's no syndication, there's no cable, there's no long tail, there's no around the world anything. So whatever you make in that box is all you're going to make. Now, we don't really know how successful any show is because they will not release that information, which I think is going to end up becoming against the law. But at the end of the day, it's almost inconsequential because the old model was based off of longevity on a show. If there were eyeballs and ad dollars, you stayed on. And you stayed on, and you stayed on, and you stayed on. And that's how the success of a show was gauged. Now it's all about subscribers. So they figured out with their algorithms that we don't need 22 or 26 or 28 episodes like I did on The Nanny back in the 90s, because at a certain point, the algorithms are showing us the show has done its heavy lifting of bringing in a new surge of subscribers, and then it plateaus. So we'll do 10 episodes at most per season. It could be 6, it could be 8, but it's basically half or a third. Less than half, but I think it's like 2/3 less of the old business model. So that's a lot less revenue. And then the series itself doesn't go for 6, 7, 8, 10, 11 years if it's a success. A success on streaming is 3, maybe 4. And they rebranded it a limited series. And they're retraining audiences to accept that. So we all get a little disappointed. Oh, I can't believe it's over. We saw the series finale, and the show is ended on the platform. But wait, they distract you with another shiny bauble, another flying dragon to look at, and start all over again the heavy lifting of bringing in more subscribers, because subscribers is what tantalizes Wall Street. And so we're being systematically squeezed out of our revenue sharing because this new business model doesn't command longevity when there's success. success isn't about longevity. It's about subscribers. And when it stops doing the heavy lifting, it has to be pushed onto the side. So we don't even know how they're determining the residuals that we do get while it's up on the platform, because they won't tell us how many people are watching it. They put it into different tiers and we have to believe them. Okay. But the thing is, economically, we're at a gross disadvantage. We're not making the money for us to have a livelihood. So we have to follow the money. And when we brought this up with the AMPTP and we said,
explain who that organization is.
That's the studios, the platforms that we are in negotiations with. Yes, Netflix, Disney, Amazon, Max, all of those. Okay.
Those are the guys you are negotiating with.
Correct. They have lawyers that sit there. Any CEO that you hear passing comments, they weren't in the room. They never heard us speak. They don't know what's going on, really. So we said to them, this is a new business model. We have to change the structure of the contract. It should not come as a surprise to you. We need to get into the subscriptions pocket so that we can catch up to what the revenue sharing is supposed to be for major contributors like SAG-AFTRA performers. They said no. That was all they said. We were stonewalled. Why? Because we cracked the code on how to win at their game. Now, when you're stonewalled, that's not a negotiation. And so they were saying, well, we're not really in a position to give that away because we're like producers, and it's really the platforms and companies that have the jurisdiction over the subscribers. So we said, well, then we'll go over your head and we'll call some of these CEOs and explain to them that we are your partners. This is a collective art form. We are foundationally your business. Mm-hmm. And we need to get into that pocket because we're being squeezed out economically of the other one. Right. It was like talking to a wall.
You are not happy. I think from the Mr. Iger, is that his name, from Disney, you were not too happy with what he had to say, huh?
I don't even want to make it about him. He stuck his foot in it so bad that you notice they're not letting any of the other CEOs open their mouth. There he is, sitting in his designer clothes, just got off his private jet at the billionaires camp, telling us we're unrealistic when he's making $78,000 a day. How do you deal with someone like that who's so tone deaf? Are you an ignoramus? I don't understand. We need someone with character and courage to go into those boardrooms and say, listen, we're doing this all wrong. Why are we doing this anyway? We're in business with these people. They are who we are building our business off of. And
let me ask you this. If the industry were to get its way, what do they want?
Industry, who's the industry, them or us?
Them, the money interest.
Okay.
The Disneys of the world. If they had their way, what would the entertainment industry look like in 10, 20 years?
Oh my God, if they had their way, I mean, we couldn't make a living at this. There would be, I think, less and less dependencies on stars and less usage of live people. And, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can say that there is a reason why unions were formed, and it's because you can't depend on management to do the right thing. Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without demand. It never has and it never will. Who knew better than him? And nothing has changed. There is a need for people that are in a position of power to belittle, demean, dishonor, and disrespect the people down at the bottom. And I cannot tolerate that, because that's not my MO. I'm an executive producer, but all the people that have ever worked for me always say, you're an actor's executive producer, you're an actor's writer, you're an actor's director. Why? Because I honor the actor. I understand that if we don't make them happy, and I appreciate the massive contribution that they make, we got to work with them, not against them. What kind of mentality is that? They won't even sell us ice in winter.
What does it mean that the writers, you have joined the writers and you guys are working together in solidarity? What's that about?
Well, I think that it strengthens our positioning in the industry. I think it certainly has invigorated the writer's strike that we're now in the mix, because we have the people that will get that conversation going on the airwaves, like things like this. But it shows you that there is a problem. I said in the negotiating room, why do you think everyone is so up in arms? You change the whole business model. You have to change the structure of the contract to pivot in the direction of this business model. We can't keep making incremental changes on an old contract. That business hardly even exists anymore.
Do you think that the owners understand that the public is really quite disgusted with their behavior and their attitudes?
You know, I don't know really, Bernie. I think these people are, I was looking even at the people across the table in the room, and I'm thinking, who are you? How do you sleep nights? Your whole job is to screw us, the performer. I looked at a guy who, obviously was religious and took off, for Shabbat and whatever. And I'm thinking maybe he's a great family man. Maybe he makes donations. Maybe he supports his community. But his job is to screw me and my members. And that's not, that's kind of compartmentalizing. You got to be consistent in your life with how you act, how you treat other people. I fight against industrial farming because no animal should ever be treated the way industrial farms treats animals. These people are looking at us the same way, thinking it's okay. We're a product. We're not human beings. We don't want the same thing for our children that you want for yours. It's really run amok, and it has to end. When I go, I love fine art, and very often, like you look at these Rodin sculptures, and they'll show these people that were once leaders cowering in the streets with chains around their ankles, knowing that it's over for them. Because at a certain point, the people rise up. They can't take anymore. But there have always been people in leadership that are disconnected, not empathic, don't really understand that their actions impact lives. And that disassociation and lack of empathy is very dangerous, but also very common amongst a lot of leaders. They have this need for power and they're not evolved human beings. So, at some point, you have to stop them dead in their tracks. And as the founder of Cancer Schmancer, what I always do is empower from a grassroots up challenge to use your hard-earned dollars as mindful consumers instead of mindless consumers. Because at the end of the day, manufacturers don't want to kill us. They just want to sell us. So you dictate to them what you want to buy, and that, excuse me, will change manufacturing trends in food, in personal care items, in cleaning items, in gardening stuff, everything. But you stop buying it and they will stop making it. If we all stop drinking cola tonight, they'd stop making it tomorrow. It wouldn't matter who was in the White House or what legislation was or wasn't passed. It wouldn't matter, because the bottom line is the bottom line. Well, we have to do that with every single corporation that behaves in an egregious way, because it's a malignancy in our nation. And we have to take control of it with mindful consumerism. You think about who you're giving your money to. I talk about when I became president, I wanted to see what our investment portfolio was. Where is the money going? Yeah, you can make a lot of money investing in, weapons and big business polluters, but to what end? So you'll get a couple of shekels here, but you're killing yourself on the other side. And even banks, you have to be careful what bank you put your money in, because some banks are known as the biggest investor in big business polluters. So you're putting your money in for a little bit of, interest or whatever it is. They're taking that money and they're killing all of us collectively by investing in companies that are not doing right by us or the planet. And this is just another symptom of that malignancy.
You're right.
Because, Bernie, at the core of all the woes of the world, it whittles down to one word: greed.
Well, matter of fact, I wrote a book just on that subject. But and you're
That's
absolutely
why I'm
right.
talking to you.
All right. These guys, you would think that if you had a few $1 billion in the bank, that might be enough, wouldn't you? But
How
they want
much
more.
It's,
And I'll tell you what,
it's a sickness. When it's a sickness,
You got it. It's exactly what it is. Greed is, we all know people have drug problems and alcohol problems. Greed is an addiction, and it is a sickness. And I want to, you guys are playing a very, very important role, because as you know, your people are better known. You're known to millions of people. You're loved by millions of people, respected by millions of people. And when you speak out, you can connect with people in a way that many other working people can't. So I just want to thank you, friend. Is there anything that we did not go over that you wanted to mention?
No, I don't think so. I would just advise not to believe anything that the opposition says, because they come up with this outrageous statements about how great their proposal was. But use your noodle, because we're the ones that don't really make much money, the majority of us. So why would we go on strike if we were offered such a great deal? We're the ones that are going to economically feel that squeeze sooner, much sooner than the CEO that's making $78,000 a day and moving around on his private jet. If it was a great deal, believe me, we would have taken it. But we were stonewalled, we were duped, and we were offered in the beginning peripheral kinds of advancements that seemed encouraging. But as we got closer to the core issues, the ones that were deal breakers, then all of a sudden they became different people. And when we extended in good faith with an unprecedented 12 days, They canceled our sessions. They stayed behind locked doors. I hope they were duking it out amongst themselves and was going to come back with something meaningful, but they came back with bupkis. And I think that they wanted to just buy another week of promoting their summer movies. Then they had the nerve to ask for another extension. It's like, are you kidding me? If you did anything meaningful, but you did nothing, including stonewall us and lock us out of the room and cancel meetings. So we're on strike, but we're willing to talk immediately after. And they're punishing us. They don't want to talk to us. So whatever they say we're doing to the industry, we're ready to sit down and negotiate right here and now in a meaningful way. And they are refusing. And they've said things like, we want to break the WGA. We want to break them. They said if people lose their houses, well, that is a necessary evil. To our faces, they said that. We were in a cone of silence when we were in the negotiation. But once you go on strike, all bets are off.
All right, listen, I think you have the American people behind you.
I hope so.
I thank you very much for your courage and for your willingness to speak out against the kind of greed we're seeing all over this country. Fran, thanks so much for being with us tonight. See you soon.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you. And thanks to your audience.